During our work on the Maltese draft, you struck out in any way indicate the need for a cessation of hostilities. You are in favor of the war in the Middle East, definitely. We do not believe that on this matter the UN Security Council should act at the behest of the Our amendment calling for humanitarian truce is consistently along the lines the stated aim of the author of the text, humanitarian nature. This is the lowest common denominator. The Council simply cannot allow, particularly against the backdrop of the monstrous humanitarian and the incoming reports of the Israeli armed forces Al-Shifa Hospital today launched on 2 UNRWA schools. Our duty to the lives of civilians who have a lethal threat. I hope that you all share that position. I would also like to recall that the majority of Council members, namely the delegation of France, Gabon, Ghana, Mozambique, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates, voted previously in the General Assembly in support of the wording we are proposing today. We call on the member to support it here.
Colleagues, as the representative of the Russian Federation, before the Council members, an amendment 2023/8, which is the draft resolution submitted according to Rule 36 of the seat. If an amendment adds to or moves the draft resolution, then the amendment would be intend to put the With those in favor, 2023/876, the amendment to it, please. Those against, raise. Abstentions, please raise their hand. The result of 5 votes in favor, 1 vote against, 9 votes, 9 abstentions. Is not adopted, not getting the required number of votes. It is my view that the is ready to proceed to the vote on the draft resolution /2023/876 The Council is ready to proceed to the vote on the draft resolution for it. I now give to those members of the Council who wish to make statements, but I give the floor to the representative of Malta.
Thank you, President. The humanitarian conflict in Gaza, the horrific terror attacks of 7th October, is deeply. On that day, children were killed and taken. Over 4,600 have been killed in Gaza. Around 1,500 are considered as missing. Many are likely trapped. The lives of newborn babies and premature babies at Al-Shifa Hospital are in grave and imminent. Countless civilians are now suffering the scares and all the devastating consequences. Over 1 million people are displaced. More than half of them are children. Week has stated, and I quote, "Gaza is becoming a graveyard for children." End quote. This stark warning must not go unheeded. On this occasion, we also pay tribute to UN staff on the ground for their heroic efforts. Remember those who have paid the ultimate price. This draft resolution we have in front of us today seeks to offer hope in this dark hour. It aims to ensure a respite from the current and give hope to the families of victims. It focuses in particular on the plight of children in the war enclave and of those being held. Last week, we have held extensive with council members, interested parties, the region, and humanitarian organizations. We did this in an effort to achieve a balanced text that can address one part of the immediate needs of the affected. We thank them all for engaging with us in an open and constructive manner. Our guiding light through the process was to make sure that the text remains focused in scope. This draft resolution urgent and extended humanitarian pauses and corridors throughout the Gaza Strip. Such measures would enable the full, rapid, and unhindered humanitarian access. It would facilitate sufficient and unhindered provision of essential services important to the well-being of civilians. It would enable recovery efforts, including for missing children, destroyed buildings, and the medical evacuation of injured children and their caregivers. Underlines and reiterates the special value of children. It calls for the safe, especially children that have Hamas and other groups. This too is a clear human imperative which cannot be ignored. Humanitarian law provides general protection as persons taking no part in hostilities. They enjoy special protection as persons who are particularly, and we recalled that the taking of hostages is international law. President, our human lives, the lives of children, civilians, and heroic. Today, the Security Council has reaffirmed its responsibility and commitment to the safeguarding of civilian lives. Do this as a matter of urgency. Committed to the protection of civilians. In this, I urge all council members and to vote in favor of this text. I thank you.
I now give the floor to the representative of the United Arab Emirates.
Thank you, Mr. President has 40 days. While we have held several meetings, heard devastating seen harming, this Council has been unable to produce anything that would alleviate the suffering of civilians. And in our region in particular, the Council appears indifferent to the carnage. Due to Malta's extraordinary efforts and to that of their team, which we with as the Arab member on the Council, today we have an opportunity to begin changing. The draft resolution is born from the idea that we must come together now to act under one fundamental children has been the North Star that has guided this Council's approach on this draft. Vote on the text before us. And as Ambassador Vanessa Fraser has just said, the key in practice for the people of Gaza must not be underestimated. For the children, the hostilities, for the Israeli children and others still held hostage, and for humanitarian risking their lives to help alleviate the enormous humanitarian suffering on the ground. What humanitarian actors have consistently called for as the bare minimum for them be able to. The resolution means in real time enough time and space for search and rescue operations to save under the rubble, including the 1,500 who have been reported missing there. It means that medicine and other essential goods can be at scale. It means that sick and injured children can extended pauses will also help reach those held hostage, particularly children who's for unconditionally. In addition, the text is unequivocal in its demand to comply with their obligations under international law. Through this text, the Council also refers to Palestinians. This is essential. 2/3 of the population in Gaza are already suffered from the consequences of forced displacement in their past. And once again, in the 80% of those living in Gaza have been uprooted again. Finally, with the call in this restrictions to the Council for the monitoring and reporting mechanisms in this text, we can aid to create the space needed for humanitarian actors to do their work. Mr. President, this is set by the Council, and it is for these reasons that we will vote in favour of it, and it has the group. However, the UAE remains resolute that we ceasefire. We must of this urgent goal. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the UAE. I shall now the vote the draft resolution contained in document S23. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/23 raise their hand? Those against, please raise their hand. Abstentions? Voting is in favor, against 0, abstentions 3. The draft resolution 27/12/2023. I I shall now give the floor to those council members who wish to make a statement after. I first give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. Past month, the world has watched with understandable frustration as this council has been unable to speak out on this pressing matter of international peace. And it was not for lack of trying. We got very close last when the United States put forward a strong and balanced resolution that would have been adopted if not for vetoes by China. And honestly, I think many had given up hope that we would ever speak in this conflict. But that's exactly what we just did. We got this because most of us worked constructively in good faith to adopt a resolution. Malta and other members of this council for leading this initiative. At the top, I want to clarify that a few members of this council still cannot bring themselves to condemn the barbaric terror carried out against Israel on October 7th. What are they afraid of? Stopping them from unequivocally condemning the actions of a terrorist organization that is Jews and that gunned down civilians, burned families alive, and executed children. A group that killed and took hostages, including children, from over a dozen countries, including the United States. There's no excuse for failing to condemn these acts of terror. Crystal clear. Hamas set this conflict in motion because it cares about the death and destruction of the Israeli people. They do not care one when the protection of the Palestinian people. If they did, they wouldn't use civilian infrastructure, schools, mosques, and hospitals to store weapons and operate command and control nodes. Use innocent, vulnerable people as human shields. Ultimately, states could not vote yes on a text that did not condemn Hamas or reaffirm the right to protect their citizens from terrorist attacks. The Council stand against all acts of terror. This horrific attack must be no exception. The United States will continue to urge this Council to condemn Hamas's actions. The United States is deeply disappointed by what is not in this text. We support many of the important this Council has adopted. For starters, while this text does not include this is the first time we have ever adopted a resolution that even mentions the word Hamas. We fully support this resolution's call for the immediate and unconditional release of all hostages held by Hamas and other groups. This is a humanitarian imperative, tirelessly to facilitate the safe return of all hostages, including 9 missing Americans, permanent U.S. citizen. We have also advocated for humanitarian pauses to allow it safe and unhindered humanitarian access to civilians. While we've made some progress in ramping up the flow of humanitarian assistance to Gaza, aid is urgently needed. The current levels are woefully insufficient. We continue to increase deliveries of aid, and we're hopeful that humanitarian pauses will help the UN and humanitarian partners deliver aid and enable the safe passage of civilians Colleagues, we've been clear as to our expectation that parties comply with their obligations under international humanitarian law. This is an added responsibility, as Hamas has deeply embedded itself within the civilian Gaza. But we've been clear at the highest levels. Hamas's actions do not lessen Israel's responsibility to protect innocent people in Gaza. At the end of the day, down to one clear, urgent goal: to save innocent lives. This conflict has taken on civilians is tragic. The loss of every single innocent life, and we grieve for all those who've been killed, Israelis and Palestinians, men, children, and elderly people. People of all nationalities and faiths, UN staff, and the families and loved ones of UNRWA workers caught in the crossfire. Over the past few weeks, I've spoken with humanitarian leaders who have teams in the region, and I've heard time and time humanitarian workers are exhausted and oftentimes in grave danger to fulfill their life-saving mission. And I'm in awe of their bravery. Humanitarians are putting themselves in harm's way to save lives, but they should not have to, because protected. All civilians should be protected. That means Hamas must stop using people, hospital staff, and patients as human shields. These are acts of unthinkable cruelty. And that also means that as Israel exercises its right, and indeed its responsibility, to protect its people from acts of terror, it must do so in a way that is consistent with the laws of war. And I want to be clear, the United States does not want to see firefights in any hospital. Innocent people, helpless people, sick people are trying to get medical care they so desperately need. Patients and the people who care for them must be protected. Full stop. Colleagues, ultimately, while this resolution is a step forward, its adoption alone will not save lives. And that is why, from the very start, President Biden and Secretary Blinken have worked exhaustively with and other humanitarian agencies alongside our regional partners to respond to this crisis. To save lives, we all need to support the heroic efforts of the UN and other humanitarian. And we all need to work with partners in the region to secure the release of all hostages and prevent this conflict from spreading. As we do so, we believe we must also start to lay the groundwork for a sustained peace. This must put the Palestinian people's voices at the center of post-crisis governance in Gaza. It must include Palestinian governance and Gaza unified with the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority. Include a sustained mechanism for reconstruction in Gaza, and it must ensure no use of Gaza as a platform for terrorism or violent attacks. And it must be a two-state solution. I know it's hard to see that brighter future with Israeli and this conflict. We speak Palestinian Gaza as we speak year-old American hostage Hamas. And Israeli children from their home. Colleagues, for the children, the next generation, to strive and please can with the opportunity.
I thank the floor.
Monsieur le
Mr. President, by multiple people and to them they'll have the to reaffirm